The Gremlins in the Walls. It was an old house, too old, really. The kind of place where the walls groaned under their own weight and floors creaked as though they were whispering secrets of their past. But to Sophie and Mark, it was their dream home, a fixer-upper in a quaint, quiet town, perfect for starting their new life together. The first few nights were peaceful, but soon, odd noises began to fill the silence. At first it was scratching. Light, like nails brushing against the wood. They chalked it up to the age of the house or maybe mice in the walls. "It's nothing," Mark assured Sophie. "We'll call pest control tomorrow." The following day, they had an exterminator come out. He wandered through the house with a flashlight and some traps, muttering about vermin and how houses this old were bound to have them. After a couple of hours, he left, promising that everything was under control. That night, though, the scratching returned, louder, more insistent, as if something was trapped behind the walls, trying to break through. Sophie swore she heard faint guttural giggles, but Mark laughed it off. "Your imagination's running wild," he said. But by the third night, even Mark couldn't deny it. The sounds weren't just scratching anymore. They were sharper, more deliberate claws raking through wood, and they were moving, scurrying from one end of the house to the other, too fast to be anything small like mice. There was something alive inside the walls. Sophie barely slept that night. Every time she dozed off, the noises would start again. But now, mixed in with the scratching, there was something worse. Whispered words, in a language she didn't recognize but filled with malice. The next morning, they discovered the first hole. It was small, just at the base of the living room wall, like something had chewed its way out. Mark crouched down to inspect it, and just as he touched the edge of the jagged opening, a tiny sharp claw darted out, scratching his hand. He yelped and pulled back, staring in horror at the blood welling up from the cut. "What the, he muttered. Sophie backed away, eyes wide. "I told you, Mark. There's something in the house." That night, they barricaded themselves in their bedroom. They heard it, more scratching, more whispering, and the same malicious giggles. But it wasn't just in the walls now. It was under the floor, above the ceiling. Something was crawling everywhere. Then, as the clock struck midnight, the scratching stopped. Silence filled the house, thick and suffocating. Sophie and Mark exchanged worried glances, hearts pounding. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs. The front door burst open, and from the shadows, small figures slithered into view. They were no bigger than 2 feet tall, their twisted bodies hunched over, with sharp claws glinting in the dim light. Their eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and their faces were twisted with glee, mouths filled with razor-sharp teeth. Gremlins. They weren't the playful creatures from stories. These were creatures born of darkness, bred in the damp and decaying parts of old homes. And now, they had broken free. Mark grabbed Sophie's hand. "We have to go now." They ran down the stairs, the gremlins scampering after them, their claws scraping the hardwood floors. The couple barely made it to the front door before the creatures lunged, grabbing at their legs and arms with bone-chilling strength. Sophie kicked one away, feeling its brittle bones snap under her heel. But there were too many. The gremlins swarmed over Mark first. His screams echoed through the house as they clawed at his face, biting and tearing at his flesh. Sophie's heart pounded in her chest, frozen in terror, as her husband disappeared beneath the mass of writhing bodies. Blood pooled on the floor, staining the wood beneath him. With one last burst of adrenaline, Sophie broke free, sprinting into the night. Behind her, she could hear the gremlins' gleeful cackles as they dragged what was left of Mark back into the house. She never returned to that home, but the whispers followed her, creeping into her dreams, promising that they would come for her next. The gremlins had tasted blood, and now they wanted more.